What are your 5 kind of key points that you've taken away at this stage, and what are the implications of those?
The first key point is that we have got a great degree of bipartisan support for aged care. The task force was set up as a tacit recognition that residential aged care needed to get more funding to be able to provide the care that we need in the future, and home care needs to have more funding and a change of funding that we get more people getting support at home. And I think that was a keynote. The second key point is very much around the funding. I'm coming from a funding point of view. We've had the new Aged Care Act, the Person-Centred Act, and there'll be lots of discussion about it, but it's important to have the act in place. It's a large act, and I think it's a very extensive and inclusive act, and there'll be elements of it that will be subject to discussion. From a funding point of view, I think it correctly provides the guidelines and the approach that we should have funding in both home care and residential aged care, with a strong focus, that the government through the taxpayer will always be a major contributor to aged care, but there is care co-contribution, that we, as we get older, we must co-contribute to our care as appropriate. And it was again strongly reinforced that for our direct care needs, these will be funded by the taxpayer. So it's our other care, our everyday living, our safety, our independence, that we really have responsibility to co-contribute. And I think that was very much enforced within the Act, and also the fact sheets and all the supporting documentations. The third one, if we look at residential, I think it's a good start for improving residential aged care and preparing ourselves for when the baby booms to start hitting residential aged care and aged care in general. At the moment, our cohort come from a war, various wars, high interest rates, a recession, a frugal generation. The baby boomers are going to have completely different expectations, and expectations of us are that they'll want to receive the quality of care, the style of care, and the accommodation setting is appropriate. And I think that the reforms were really needed to start preparing the way. So one of the major areas that I'm seeing is that in residential aged care, we must get the sustainability of the sector to enable us to maintain but build new builds that are going to be required. We've got an elderly population. We're going to have a shortage of beds and places, and that shortage will only change if we have a sector that is financially sustainable. And the next generation, the baby boomers, are going to be demanding a different style of accommodation than what we have today. So I thought that the reforms were well weighted, in the sense that wasn't concentrating on direct care, because that will be taxpayer funded, albeit with a new means testing arrangement for the non-direct care of the ANAC, we'll call it. But it's very much weighted to daily living services, catering, food, cleaning, and everyday living, and saying that the contribution of those, how are we going to put in a system in place? And that was a key takeaway, I think, in residential aged care. In home care, I think, again, a very momentous package, preparing ourselves for support at home, preparing that we want to increase the number of people who are going to have care at home. And one of the big issues with the current home care arrangements is the funding instrument, the 4 levels. And this is now changed to 8 levels, which I think is far more appropriate. We've got a higher level, so we can receive higher clinical care particularly. And I think moving away, having the $15,000 set aside for equipment separately, or capital expenditure, is a very good initiative. And having the $25,000 for palliative end of life, for the 3 months end of life, I think is really reflective of a compassionate society. So I think home care, it now, hopefully we get the right funding structure that enables people to use the funding as appropriate. So I think that as a very positive start, we're enshrining this use the funding where appropriate, and have co-contributions to care.
Mm. I feel like there was a but coming in there.
I think, but the but is it enough? One of the things that hasn't been shown, and StewartBrown will be producing some modelling, is this enough? You know, we now know what it is, and we can look at it from a consumer's point of view, what the additional costs may be through RAD retention or it means testing arrangements. But as a sector contribution, we've still got to say, is this enough? So my but, like any accountant, is I'm not sure it's fully enough yet. It's a very good start. It now will allow us to assess what the sector's sustainability is going to be, but we need to think, I suspect there still will be needing to be some more increments coming through.